Mom said Santa forgot us again, the boy told the Mafia boss at the bus stop on Christmas. Most people were indoors, cozy beside their fires, enjoying the warmth of Christmas Eve. But not Elior. Elior sat on the cold metal bench at the bus stop, his small hands tucked tightly under his chin. His coat, though patched in many places, could not keep out the chill that seeped into his bones. He shivered, but not only from the cold. His eyes, wide and solemn, watched the empty road. The snowflakes settled on his dark hair like tiny stars. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer, "Mom said Santa forgot us again." His words hung in the night air, fragile and sad. Elior's mother had been gone for a few months now. His father had disappeared years before, and the small apartment they had lived in was now just an echo of laughter and warmth that no longer existed. Christmas had once been a magical time for him, but now it was just a reminder of absence, of emptiness. He hugged his knees, wishing for something, anything, that could bring even a small smile to his face. He didn't know why he kept hoping, or why he imagined Santa might remember him despite everything. Maybe because hope, however small, was all he had left. A low rumble broke the quiet. A sleek black car, gleaming like a shadow in the snow, rolled slowly down the street. It stopped just a few feet from the bench. The engine idled like a quiet growl. Elior's eyes widened. The car was too clean, too shiny, too powerful to belong to anyone in his small world. The driver's side door opened, and a tall man stepped out. His presence filled the space like heat in the cold night. Dark hair slicked back, eyes sharp and calculating, he wore a long coat that brushed the ground. There was something in his aura, danger, authority, and an unspoken sadness that mirrored Elior's own. The man's gaze fell on Elior. He stopped a few feet away, watching the small figure on the bench with an intensity that made Elior's heart beat faster. "Why are you sitting out here all alone on Christmas Eve?" the man asked, his voice deep and calm but not unkind. Elior hesitated. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Most people ignored him or walked past quickly. But this man, he seemed to notice everything, as if he could see inside Elior's chest and understand the hollow place in his heart. "Mom said, Santa forgot us again," Elior murmured, looking down at the snow-dusted ground. The man's brow furrowed. There was something in the boy's words that tugged at a long-forgotten part of him. He had spent years building walls around his heart, keeping warmth and weakness at bay, yet this small voice pierced them. "Who is your mother?" the man asked cautiously. She's gone," Elior said softly. "And Dad, he's gone too. I live alone now." "Well, almost alone." His voice cracked and he swallowed hard, trying not to cry. The man knelt down slowly to Elior's level, his eyes never leaving the boy's. The snowflakes landed on his coat but did not seem to touch him. "And you are waiting here for Santa?" Elior nodded. "I thought maybe he might remember me anyway." The man's lips twitched slightly, almost a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. He could feel something shifting in the air between them, a strange connection, like two lost pieces of the same puzzle finding each other. "Do you often sit here, waiting for someone who may never come?" the man asked. "Every year," Elior admitted. "Even though I know he might forget, I hope." His eyes were filled with longing, so raw and honest that it made the man uneasy. He was not used to such innocence. Not anymore. For a long moment, neither spoke. The snow fell quietly, covering the sounds of the city. The man looked at Elior's thin coat, his small hands, the way he hugged himself for warmth. He could feel the boy's loneliness, his fragile hope, and it stirred something deep inside him, a feeling he had buried beneath power and fear for years. Finally, the man straightened. "Come with me," he said. Elior blinked, surprised. I can't," he said softly. I mean I should." "You have nowhere else to go tonight," the man said, his voice gentle but firm. "And I will take care of you, just for tonight. Nothing else matters right now." Elior hesitated. It felt strange, this offer from a man he didn't know. but something in the man's eyes, a mix of sternness and something softer, made him feel safe. For the first time in a long time, he felt a tiny spark of hope. Okay, he said quietly. The man held out a gloved hand and Elior took it. The warmth of the man's touch surprised him. Together they walked to the car. Snow swirled around them, the night seeming both darker and brighter at the same time. Inside the car, the warmth was immediate. The leather seats smelled faintly of smoke and wood polish. Elior pressed himself against the seat, staring out the window as the city passed in a blur of snow and light. The man's hands rested on the steering wheel, but his attention was on Elior. "Do you have a name?" he asked. "Elior," the boy said. "Just Elior." "Elior," the man repeated as if tasting the sound. "It suits you, strong even in the cold." Elior looked at him, puzzled. "Strong?" "Yes," the man said quietly. "Even when you feel small, even when the world forgets you, there is strength in simply surviving." Elior swallowed, feeling a warmth inside him that had nothing to do with the car's heater. For the first time in a long time he felt seen, truly seen. The car rolled to a stop outside a tall, imposing building. Its walls were made of dark stone and windows reflected the soft glow of the streetlights. Despite its grandeur, it felt cold and distant. But something about it called to Elior, a promise of safety, of mystery, and of something he could not yet name. The man opened the door and they stepped inside. Warmth immediately surrounded them. Candles flickered on tall stands, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The scent of wood and smoke filled the air. "You will stay here tonight," the man said, his voice firm. "No one will hurt you. I will make sure of it." Elior nodded, looking around in awe. He had never seen anything like this. It was beautiful, yes, but it also carried an air of danger, of secrets and stories he could not yet understand. Why are you helping me?" Elior asked after a moment, his voice barely a whisper. The man hesitated, as if the question caught him off guard. He had spent so many years keeping everyone at a distance, trusting no one, yet here was this small boy asking for nothing more than warmth and kindness. "Because tonight I cannot ignore you," he finally said. "Sometimes the world gives second chances. Sometimes even I deserve one." Elior looked up at him, his eyes wide. He didn't fully understand, but he felt it in his chest, the truth in the man's words, the quiet promise of something more than cold streets and forgotten nights. The man led him to a small room at the back of the mansion. It was simple, yet warm. A bed with soft blankets waited, a small table with a candle, and a window where snowflakes danced in the night. Elior climbed onto the bed, pulling the blankets around him. For the first time in months he felt safe. The man lingered in the doorway watching him. "Sleep well tonight, Elior," he said quietly. "Tomorrow we will see what the world holds." Elior nodded, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice almost lost in the crackle of the candle. As he drifted into dreams, the man remained, staring out the window at the falling snow. The city was silent, the streets empty. And yet for the first time in many years he felt something stir inside him, something long buried, something that whispered of hope, of redemption, and of the fragile, stubborn light of a small boy who refused to be forgotten. Outside, the snow continued to fall, each flake a silent witness to the night when two lost souls met, one small and fragile, the other powerful and feared, both bound by loneliness and the faint, shimmering promise of change. And somewhere in the quiet of the night, the city held its breath, waiting for what would come next. The morning sun struggled to pierce the heavy clouds, casting a pale light over the city. Inside the tall, dark mansion, warmth and quiet settled around Elior. The small room felt safe, yet it was strange, filled with shadows that seemed to watch him. Elior stretched under the blankets, blinking against the soft light. The memory of the night before lingered in his mind like a dream he was afraid to wake from. A powerful man, dark and mysterious, had taken him in when the world had forgotten him. Elior did not understand why, but he felt, for the first time in a long while, that he belonged somewhere. Outside his window, the snow glistened like tiny crystals. The city was silent, almost as if it too was holding its breath. Elior dressed quickly, pulling on the patched coat and worn shoes, and peeked out into the hallway. The vast corridors stretched like a labyrinth, rich in shadows and light, with the scent of wood and smoke lingering in every corner. "Good morning," a deep voice said from the doorway. Elior jumped slightly and turned to see the man from the night before standing there. His dark coat brushed the floor, his eyes sharp yet not unkind. "You slept well?" he asked. Elior nodded. I did, thank you." The man studied him for a moment. "I am Varric," he said finally, as if giving a name to something that had no place yet in Elior's life. "And you are safe here." "Varric," Elior repeated, tasting the word. It sounded strong, almost like it belonged to someone who could protect the world. Varric nodded, then turned to leave but paused. "Stay close. The world outside these walls, it is not always kind, and I will not have you wandering into danger." Elior watched him go, a strange mix of fear and fascination stirring in his chest. This man was powerful, yes, but there was something else too, something he could not yet name. Breakfast was simple: a warm bowl of porridge, a slice of bread, and some fruit. Varric watched silently as Elior ate, noting how the boy's small hands trembled from cold or nerves. He could not tell. The silence was not uncomfortable, it was careful, like the quiet before a storm. "Do you know why I am here?" Elior asked, his voice small. Varric looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "I do not know," he admitted, "but perhaps neither of us did until now." Elior nodded, unsure if he understood. He had always been alone. To feel someone look at him like that, with attention and care, was almost overwhelming. After breakfast, Varric led Elior through the mansion. Each room told a story: walls lined with dark wood, chandeliers sparkling like frozen flames, paintings of people whose eyes seemed to follow him. He passed vast libraries, hallways filled with statues, and doors that opened to private gardens blanketed in snow. Everything was beautiful, yet there was an undercurrent of danger, of secrets that whispered from the shadows. "Why do you live here?" Elior asked finally, unable to contain his curiosity. Varric's expression darkened. "This house, it is mine because I control it. I protect it because it is the only place I can keep the world at a distance, but it is not meant for children." He paused, then softened slightly. "Except for you, Elior." Elior's heart swelled. He did not understand why, but the words felt like a gift. He wanted to ask more questions, but something in Varric's gaze told him to wait. Patience, he seemed to say, would reveal more than words ever could. The hours passed slowly. Elior explored the mansion under Varric's watchful eyes, learning the small rules of the place. He was not allowed to wander outside alone, and he was to speak only when spoken to. It felt strict, almost cold, yet it was safety he had never known before. By mid-afternoon, the snowstorm outside had grown heavier, covering the city in a thick blanket of white. Elior pressed his face to the window, watching the snow swirl. He had never seen so much snow in his life. The city looked magical, and yet he knew danger still lurked in its streets. Varric appeared behind him, his presence sudden and commanding. "The world outside is not as peaceful as it looks," he said. "People will try to take what is yours. Even now others watch and wait." Elior turned to him. "Others who?" Varric's eyes darkened. "Enemies, people who wish to control, to take what they cannot earn. I will protect you, but you must understand, this world is cruel." Elior felt a shiver run down his spine. He had known cruelty, yes, but to hear it spoken so openly, with the promise of danger, made it real in a way he could not ignore. Varric led him to a smaller room near the library. It was filled with maps, ledgers, and objects that seemed to hum with unseen energy. Candles flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls. "You will stay here for a while," Varric said. "Learn, observe, understand." Knowledge is power, and power will keep you alive. Elior nodded. He wanted to ask questions, to understand everything, but the weight of Varric's gaze made him pause. Instead, he sat on a chair and watched the flames in the fireplace dance. Hours passed, and the boy found himself thinking about his mother. He remembered her gentle voice, her tired but loving smile, and the small ways she had tried to make the world bright for him. A pang of sadness filled his chest, but it was softer now, tempered by the warmth of the room and the quiet presence of Varric outside the door. Just as the day began to fade, a sharp sound echoed through the mansion. A window rattled in the wind and a faint knock came at the main door. Varric's expression changed instantly. He moved with silent precision, opening doors and checking corners, his body tense and ready. Elior watched, his heart pounding. For the first time, he realized just how dangerous this world could be and how strong Varric truly was. A voice called from outside, muffled by the storm. "Varric, we need to talk." Varric's jaw tightened. "Not now," he said sharply, but his tone carried unease. The visitor outside was persistent, and Varric's calm control slipped for the briefest moment. Elior noticed it. He had never seen anyone so powerful seem worried. A small part of him wanted to hide, but he stayed, unable to look away. Finally, Varric opened the door just enough to speak through the storm. "I am busy, leave." There was a pause, then a sharp laugh, low and dangerous. "You cannot hide forever, Varric. Everyone has a weakness." Varric's hand tightened on the doorframe. He didn't respond. Instead, he closed the door slowly, then turned to Elior, his face unreadable. "Do you see?" he asked. "Even here, even in safety, danger waits. That is the world outside these walls." Elior nodded slowly. He wanted to ask if Varric was afraid, but the man's quiet strength filled the room with reassurance. Somehow, he knew that no matter what happened, Varric would protect him. As night fell, the snowstorm outside grew fiercer, but inside the mansion the fire crackled and warmth filled the rooms. Elior lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Varric, the snow, and the strange, terrifying world he had just stepped into. He did not understand why the man had taken him in, why he had been allowed into this mysterious, dangerous life. But one thing was clear. For the first time in months, Elior did not feel entirely alone. And somewhere deep in Varric's heart, buried beneath years of fear and power, a spark had begun to grow. It was small and fragile, like a candle in the snow, but it was enough to change everything. The storm raged outside, and the city seemed both alive and dangerous. Inside, a boy and a man, so different yet bound by fate, faced a night full of uncertainty. Tomorrow would bring challenges, perhaps even threats they could not yet imagine. But tonight, they had found each other. And in the quiet, snow-filled night, hope, fragile and uncertain, began to bloom. The city outside was buried under a thick blanket of snow, the streets quiet except for the occasional scrape of boots against ice. But inside Varric's mansion, tension hung in the air like a living thing. Elior awoke to a strange stillness. The usual crackle of the fireplace seemed muted, and the shadows in the corners of his room looked longer than before, stretching like dark fingers. Something in the house felt different. Something was not right. He dressed quickly, pulling on his coat and boots, and crept out into the hall. Varric was already awake, standing by the large window in the main room. His posture was tense, his gaze fixed on the snow-covered streets below. "Good morning," Elior said softly, trying not to startle him. Varric did not respond at first. His eyes were cold, sharp, alert. Then, without turning, he spoke. "We have to move carefully today. Someone is watching us, someone dangerous." Elior's stomach tightened. "Watching us?" Varric finally looked at him, his dark eyes serious. "Yes, you are important. That is why they are looking, and I cannot let them take you." The boy swallowed hard. He had known the world could be cruel, but hearing it out loud made it real. Who wants me? People who want power. People who do not care who they hurt to get it, Varric said, his voice low but firm. And they will try anything to break us. Ilior followed him through the mansion, his small footsteps quiet on the polished floors. Varric led him to a hidden door behind one of the bookshelves, a door Ilior had never noticed before. It opened into a narrow staircase that spiraled downward into the bowels of the mansion. "This is," Ilior began, but Varric interrupted. "A safe place. One of many, you must trust me." The staircase led to a room filled with maps, strange artifacts, and weapons carefully arranged on shelves. Candles flickered, casting a warm light over the stone walls. "You will stay here today," Varric said. "I will handle the rest." Ilior nodded, but he could not help feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. He wandered over to a map of the city pinned to the wall. Red marks covered certain areas, and a few places were circled in black ink. "What are these?" he asked. "Threats," Varric replied simply. "People we must watch, places we must avoid. Knowledge is our weapon. Without it, we are vulnerable." As Ilior studied the map, a strange sound echoed from outside the hidden room, a whisper of movement almost too soft to notice. He froze, listening carefully. Then he heard it again, footsteps, faint but deliberate, moving across the mansion above. He hurried to the door and peeked into the stairwell. At first he saw nothing. But then from the shadows a figure emerged, cloaked and hooded, moving quickly but quietly. Ilior's heart raced. He wanted to call out, but his voice would betray him. The figure paused near the main hall, glancing around as if searching. Ilior felt a surge of panic. He ran back to the map room and quietly closed the door, holding his breath. When he peeked again, the figure had disappeared. The mansion seemed calm once more, but Ilior could not shake the feeling of danger pressing close. Hours passed slowly. Ilior tried to keep busy, studying maps and learning the names of the streets, the neighborhoods, the people Varric had marked. But the unease in his chest would not fade. Finally, the door opened and Varric stepped inside. His expression was tight, his jaw clenched. "They are closer than I thought," he said. "We must be ready." "Who are they?" Ilior asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Rivals. People who will stop at nothing to control this city, and some have powers we cannot fully understand." Ilior felt a chill. Powers. He had not expected that. His world was already full of danger and mystery, and now there was something else, something more terrifying and unknown. Varric moved closer, placing a firm hand on Ilior's shoulder. "Do not be afraid," he said. "I will protect you, but you must also learn. You must be smart, careful, and brave." Ilior nodded. He wanted to be brave. He wanted to show Varric that he could help, that he was not just a small, helpless boy. "Come," Varric said. "We will patrol the streets." The city was a different place under the snowstorm. Empty streets, abandoned markets, and shuttered windows gave it an eerie silence. Footsteps crunched on the ice as they moved, Varric's presence commanding and silent beside the small boy. They turned a corner and Ilior froze. Ahead of them, a shadow moved. A figure cloaked in darkness, its face hidden, watching from an alleyway. Varric's hand went to the hilt of a dagger at his belt, his eyes sharp and alert. The figure stepped forward and Ilior could see the faint shimmer of something unnatural, like the air around it was colder than the storm. Ilior felt a shiver run down his spine. "Stay behind me," Varric said. The figure spoke, its voice low and strange. "You cannot hide forever, Varric. The boy belongs to me." Varric's eyes narrowed. "You will not take him." The figure laughed, a sound that sent a chill through Ilior's chest. "We shall see." Before Ilior could react, the figure vanished, leaving only a cold wind in its place. The snow swirled around them and Ilior could barely catch his breath. Varric turned to him, his expression serious. "Do you understand now? The danger is real, but so is the bond we share. I will not let anyone harm you." Ilior nodded, feeling both fear and a strange strength. He realized that he trusted Varric completely, that he believed in him more than he had believed in anyone in his life. As they returned to the mansion, Elior's mind raced. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and something beyond his understanding, but he had not been alone. Varric had been there, steady, unshakable, and protective. That night, as the snow fell heavier than ever, Varric and Elior sat by the fire in the large hall. The mansion was quiet, but the tension of the day lingered. "You were brave today," Varric said, his voice softer than usual. "Even when you were scared, you stayed with me." Elior looked at him, surprised. I was scared." "I know," Varric replied, "and that is why you were brave. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it." Elior thought about that, his heart feeling warmer than the fire beside them. He wanted to be brave, to help Varric to face whatever darkness waited outside, but deep down, he also knew that the night was not over. The figure in the alley had not been the only one. There were others, watching, waiting, and some part of him feared that no matter how strong Varric was, they would come again. As he lay in his small bed that night, Elior could hear the wind howling outside, carrying with it whispers of the dangers yet to come. He closed his eyes, imagining Varric's steady presence beside him, a shield against the unknown. Somewhere in the shadows, the figure watched, waiting for the right moment. And Elior, small and frightened yet filled with a new kind of courage, drifted into sleep, dreaming of snow, firelight, and a bond that could withstand even the darkest winter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and perhaps even a confrontation with forces beyond anything Elior had ever imagined. But for now, in the quiet of the mansion, two lost souls, one small and fragile, the other powerful and feared, had found each other. And in that finding there was hope. The night air was sharp and cold, carrying with it the scent of snow and distant smoke. The city lay silent beneath the thick white blanket, but the quiet was a lie. Danger had crept closer, moving unseen, and both Varric and Elior felt it in their bones. Varric stood at the window of the mansion, his dark coat brushing the floor, eyes scanning the city below. The events of the past days weighed heavily on him. Every shadow seemed alive, every wind gust carried a warning. He had faced enemies before, but never had his own heart been so involved. Elior stepped quietly behind him. "Varric, are we safe?" His small voice trembled, but there was a strength behind it, a courage he did not fully recognize in himself. Varric did not turn. "Safe is a word for those who are asleep," he said quietly. "We are alive. That is all we can promise." Elior nodded, absorbing the weight of the words. The boy had learned more in these days than he had in years. He had learned that the world could be cruel, but that courage, loyalty, and trust could fight even the darkest forces. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed from below, a whisper carried on the wind, almost imperceptible. Varric's eyes narrowed. "They are here," he said, his voice low but sharp. Elior felt a shiver run down his spine. He had heard about danger before, seen shadows and threats, but now it was real, close, and unavoidable. He gripped the edge of the window ledge. Varric moved to him, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. "No harm will come to you if you trust me." They descended the grand staircase, the mansion's halls alive with tension. Candles flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. Each step felt deliberate, measured. Varric's senses were sharp, every movement precise. Elior followed closely, trying to match his calm, but his heart pounded in his chest. At the main entrance, a figure appeared, stepping out of the shadows. Cloaked in darkness, the stranger's presence was unsettling. A cold wind seemed to swirl around him, and the air itself felt heavier. "You cannot hide him forever, Varric," the figure said, its voice low and commanding. "The boy belongs to me." Varric stepped forward, his posture unyielding. "He belongs to no one but himself," he said. "And I will protect him no matter the cost." Elior watched the exchange, his small hands clenched into fists. He felt fear, yes, but also a strange resolve. He had survived, learned, and grown. Perhaps he could help. The figure raised a hand and the temperature dropped sharply. Frost formed along the edges of the doorway, and the shadows seemed to twist and reach toward them. Ilior shivered, but he did not run. He stepped closer to Varric, feeling a strange courage build inside him. "Leave, and you will not be harmed," Varric said. "Stay, and we will show you the strength of those who refuse to bow." For a moment the figure wavered, the shadows flickering like candlelight. Then it laughed, a sound that echoed through the hall, cold and sharp. "Very well, Varric. Let us see if your loyalty is enough to save him." The figure lunged forward, moving faster than the eye could follow. Varric reacted immediately, intercepting the attack with precise movements. The room became a blur of motion, Varric defending, striking, and guiding Ilior to safety. Ilior watched, heart hammering, until he realized he could help. He remembered the lessons of the past days: observation, patience, and courage. Spotting a small lever near the wall, he pulled it quickly. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a passage that could give them an advantage. "Here," he shouted. Varric glanced at him, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, then nodded. Together they moved through the hidden passage, slipping away from the immediate danger. The figure did not follow immediately. Its laughter echoed, fading into the storm outside. Varric and Ilior emerged in a courtyard blanketed in snow, the city quiet around them. For a moment they were safe. Varric turned to Ilior, his eyes softening. "You were brave," he said. "You trusted yourself when it mattered most." Ilior felt warmth spread through him. I didn't want to be scared anymore," he admitted. "I want to help." "You have helped," Varric said quietly, "more than you know. You have reminded me that courage is not mine alone. It can be shared even with the smallest among us." They paused, looking at the snow-covered city. The wind had calmed, and the first faint light of dawn began to touch the horizon, painting the buildings with soft gold and pink. Ilior realized that the world, while dangerous, could also be beautiful, and Varric was no longer just a powerful figure to fear. He was a protector, a guide, and perhaps something more, someone who could teach him that even in darkness light could be found. But the figure from before was not gone. Ilior could sense it, a presence lingering, watching, waiting. Varric did not speak of it yet, but his eyes remained alert, scanning every shadow. "Will it come back?" Ilior asked, his voice small. "Perhaps," Varric admitted. "But that is why we must be ready, and we will be, together." They returned to the mansion, preparing for what might come. Varric moved with purpose, placing guards, checking windows, and ensuring that every entry was secure. Ilior helped where he could, passing messages, holding doors, and learning the small ways power and protection intertwined. Night fell again, but the fear that had filled the city during the storm was replaced with determination. They were no longer just surviving, they were standing together, ready to face whatever came. As they settled by the fire, Ilior asked a question he had been holding back for days. "Varric, why did you help me? Why me?" Varric looked at him for a long time, his eyes distant, thoughtful. "Because I saw something in you," he said finally. "Something I had forgotten existed: hope, courage, innocence. And perhaps because I needed to remember that such things can exist, even in the darkest of times." Ilior felt a lump in his throat. He had never expected such words, never imagined that someone so strong, so feared, could feel something so gentle. They sat in silence for a while, watching the firelight dance across the walls. Outside, the city was still, the snow sparkling under the faint moonlight. Inside, two souls, one small and fragile, the other powerful and feared, had found a bond that could not be broken by fear or darkness. The next day brought clarity. Varric and Ilior walked through the quiet streets, checking the city, observing carefully. No enemy appeared, no shadow lurked too close. And yet Ilior felt stronger. He had faced fear, had acted despite it, and had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. By midday, the city seemed peaceful, almost magical in the snow. Children played, unaware of the dangers that had lurked in families prepared for Christmas. Elior looked at them, a sense of longing and warmth filling his heart. Perhaps one day he would have that too. Varric watched him, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "One day you will," he said, "and you will bring light where there was darkness." Elior smiled, small but genuine. "I hope so." The days passed, and slowly the city healed from the shadows that had haunted it. Varric's enemies had been driven away, outsmarted, or dissuaded by the unexpected courage of the boy who had once felt forgotten. And Elior had grown. No longer just a frightened child, he was a part of a world that had once seemed impossible. One evening, as snow fell gently outside the window, Elior spoke quietly. Maybe Santa remembered us after all." Varric's lips twitched, almost a smile, but he did not answer. He did not need to. The boy was safe, the city quiet, and the bond between them unbroken. They had faced darkness together, and though the night had been long and full of fear, dawn had come. Light had returned, and with it hope. In the quiet of the mansion, two unlikely companions, one small and fragile, the other powerful and feared, sat side by side, watching the snow fall. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the courage, trust, and redemption that had quietly blossomed within its heart. And somewhere in the soft glow of the candles, it felt as though the world had whispered a promise. Even in the coldest winter, even when forgotten, there is always a chance for light, for hope, and for hearts to heal.